Owen Kuyper, what a privilege to sit down with you, and of all places in Stellenbosch. You've had an illustrious swimming and coaching career. Most people know about your coaching, but I think most of your swimmers don't even know about your swimming career. So let's dive straight in. Tell me, where did it start for Owen the swimmer?
Thijs, I think, way back in the early 60s at primary school. I was at Arcadia Primary. My mother coached the school team, a small little school, but we had a pretty good outfit there, and we trained hard kind of every day. But that was it. I never trained with a professional coach or even with a club in those days. I think when I was in standard 5, 12 years old was the first time that I did anything in swimming. I got selected for a team. I think it was an age group team. I'm not really sure, but it was a Northern Transvaal team that went down to Kimberley. And all I can remember from that meet was, well, actually nothing from the meet. All I remember is that we stayed next door to Karen Muir, and she had just come back from breaking that world record in the 110 yards back.
She was already Karen Muir then.
She was, well, that's why we went down to Kimberley. It was all about her. That's why the gala was there, I think. Okay. And we were hosted with people, and I stayed next door to her, and we went across for tea. And so that's where I met Karen, but I think all I said was hello, and I don't think she said anything back because she was so shy. And but that's when I met her for the first time.
Legendary swimmer, one of those swimmers whose name sort of transcended the sport. People who don't even know anything about swimming know who Karen Muir was.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think she's she would go down as one of the very best South African swimmers ever. I think if you look at what she did over the years, how many world records she broke, and she swam in a time where, you know, we weren't in world swimming. If you can think, if we were in international swimming in those years when she was swimming in the late 60s, early 70s, she would have just been unbeatable. You know.
So she swam her world records during isolation already?
Yeah, I think, well, she started early, 64 I think was her first world record, if I remember correctly, in Blackpool in the 110 yard backstroke. And then she carried on. I can remember in 72 she came to Pretoria. She actually came and trained. We trained in the same squad for a while. She trained with Bob Campbell. She was at Macy's Hood.
Oh, right.
And those were probably the heydays in Pretoria. I remember them putting up extra stands on the side of the pool just to have place for all the people that came to watch galas in those days. It was huge. And that was really due to Karen. You know, there were a lot of really good swimmers in Pretoria in those days, but obviously Karen was the big attraction.
So you actually saw her swimming, you saw her in action?
Oh yes, yeah, I saw her break a few world records, and trained with her, and we were the same age. She and I were exactly the same age. Okay. And but I can't even remember training with her. She was probably a little bit too quick for me. You know?
Oh, it's okay. So primary school, and then you went to high school.
Yeah, I went to Pretoria Boys High and just carried on swimming at school. My best friend at that stage, and still probably, Obos Braak, was very instrumental in me starting to swim. He was really good as a junior. He was, you know, one of the top swimmers in the world, and he was at me to come and train. And I remember when we were in standard 6, I was actually playing cricket, and you can't play cricket and swim at those big boys' schools. And I was going home one day, and he called me. He said, "Aren't you going to enter for Northern Transvaal school trials?" And I said, no, I don't swim that stuff. I just swim at school. He said, no, I must come. So I went along. We went to room 21, and I went and entered. When I got home, my folks were cross. They said, I'm going to embarrass them. I'm going to embarrass myself. That's for the good swimmers that train at clubs and things. And I went along and and got selected for Northern Transvaal Primary for high schools.
Saw that swim?
Yeah, very definitely, and very proud forever after that.
Very supportive of your career.
Yes, very much, especially my mom. You know, she was big into swimming. She coached right until we were coaching together, and she was her school team was up against my school team for many years when we were coaching here in the 1990s.
So, and besides the fact that your mom inspired you as a swimmer and also as a coach, what did you learn from her?
I can't really remember. I think she was quite good. I think she kind of bribed us with jelly babies and things like that to swim more and swim better. I don't think she had a great swimming knowledge, but she was really so passionate. And you know, I always say with kids, when you're coaching little kids, that's what it's all about. If you've got that passion, and you know, the kids know that, they pick that up. And if they know you're passionate and it really matters to you, then they really swim for you, and they swim so much hard. And I think that's what our whole team did for my mom. And when I went to Boys High, I swam standard 6, 7, 8 just at school. Made the SA school side in 67, but still just swimming at school. And then in the end of 68, I was sick. I got rheumatic fever when I was in standard 8, and they said I couldn't swim again. And I think that kind of motivated me to swim again.
Oh, that's very South African. If people tell you can't do it, then you will do it.
Yeah. So, and then I kind of started listening to Obos, and he took me along to train with Bob Campbell. And
that's quite an important name. As well.
No, he was fantastic. You know, we trained at Hillcrest swimming pool, and we only swam in summer. Starting the 1st September, no matter what the temperature was, and it was always freezing cold. Swam across the lane, across the width of the pool, and he had swimmers there. You know, at a stage, I think he had Brian Stewart, who was the SA backstroke champion, Harold Pierce, butterfly champion, Obos, and Pieter van Niekerk, breaststroke, Nico van der Merwe. So you had your South African medley relay team swimming there, all training with Bob. And that's just some of the guys. With Katinka Germes, she was fantastic. I remember Katinka swimming at SAU one year, and she won every single women's event at the championship. So she swam, and then the men's, and she swam, and then the men's, and she won every single. I know that the standard's not that great at SAU. It's not like NCAA's, but still to do that is rather special. And she was a special swimmer. Yeah, she was great.
Across all strokes, I mean,
everything.
Freestyle, breaststroke, backstroke.
She could do everything, and from 100 to 800, she could do the whole lot. But all those swimmers, those are the guys that I went to go and train with. They were all older than us there, but they had a huge influence, I think, on the little ones that were coming up in those days.
Yeah.
And that's the first that in '69 I made nationals for the first time.
Okay,
We went to Currie Cup here in Cape Town.
In Cape Town.
Yeah, yeah. It was my first Currie Cup.
Oh, and you mentioned a certain Lee McGregor. If it wasn't for him, you would have won a few national titles.
Oh, gee. Yeah, he's just too good, that guy. He's too tough. Yeah, no, Lee. I never beat Lee. Lee was the best backstroke when I was around. Charles Meyer with my first year, but then I wasn't in contention in '69. But from '70 through, Lee was winning the 100 and the 200 backstrokes in the time that I swam until my latter years. Yeah.
And backstroke was your speciality?
Yeah, backstroke, 100 and 200 backstroke. Swam a bit of medley as well, but mainly 100 and 200 backstroke.
During those years, what other swimmers stood out for you? I remember you mentioning Paul Blackbeard.
Yeah, look, Paul started, I was just kind of getting to the end of my swimming career when Paul started. I think Paul's first nationals was '73 in Bulawayo.
You were still swimming then?
I was still swimming then, yeah. And I think I got a second in the 100 backstroke in Bulawayo. 200 I didn't shape, but that was Paul's first nationals, and already as a youngster you could see him coming through really well. And the next year, '74, I remember him. '74, '75 was his big year. He won about everything that year. He was fantastic. And Paul, he was going to, I think when you interviewed him, he said he was going to go to the States, and then he was unable to go because of family situation, and he had to stick around when his dad was so ill. But I think probably the best swimmer I ever saw in my life.
Really?
Paul Blackbeard, yeah.
And you saw a lot of very good swimmers.
Yeah, when I went to the States, I went over to Southern Illinois in '71, '72. I swam in America on a scholarship there at Southern Illinois with Ray Essick. And my first meet was against Indiana. In the start of '72, I swam the medley relay. I led off the medley relay against Mike Stam, who was he held at a stage, he held the 100 backstroke record. And on the other side of me was Gary Hall wanting to do a time trial. So it was just the three of us in the water. And the pistol went. I never saw them again, of course, until we got off. But at that meet, Mark Spitz was there. And that was just before. That was 6 months before he won his 7 gold medals in Munich.
At the Munich Olympics.
And look, he was fantastic. But I put Paul Blackbeard up there with him any day. Michael Phelps
Really?
any day. Yeah, he was just fantastic. Paul. I remember his 200 freestyle. I remember in '76. He was swimming the 200 freestyle at Nationals in Durban, and I think it was him and Simon Gray were neck and neck, and they came out of the last turn, and Paul just kind of lifted himself up in the water, and he brought those legs in with his big 6-feet kick. He just flew that last 50. It was just, you get goosebumps when you see that happen. He was fantastic, freestyle and butterfly. And as you know in your interview you did with him a little earlier, he's still doing really well. A lot of open water swimming, and I saw in January he swam 100 100s, for on New Year's Day, just to get into the swing of things. He's fantastic.
When I saw him at the Cape Mile, he was just so humble and so approachable, and he actually came down to swim the mile, and if I remember correctly, he dipped under 20 minutes. Not too bad for a 58-year-old.
Under 20 minutes, it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
with him, guys like Charlie Cobell, I don't know if you remember Charles, he's the first guy to go under 2 minutes in the 200 freestyle in '73 at the South African Games in Pretoria, and he was really good. So many guys, that swam around then, but I would say Paul Blackbeard would be my number one. With Lee McGregor, of course, was very good, and he's proved to be really tough in more than just in the swimming pool. I mean, he's surf lifesaving, paddling in rivers, in the ocean, wherever. He's a real competitor, and he was a very good swimmer.
I spoke to Lee recently on the telephone. I want to do an interview with him in December, and he mentioned that he's actually feeling stronger and paddling stronger than he was at the age of 40. And in fact, he said to me, when he swam his South African record for the 400 freestyle, he was 25 years old. He reckons at the age of 69 he can better that time. I think he said he swam at 4:17. And I know Lee, if you tell him, if you give him a bit of a carrot, he'll probably achieve it. So
he's so strong in his head, and he's such a competitor. He probably will do it.
I think he will do it, but I mean, there's no shame in coming second to Lee McGregor.
Yeah, no, sure. Yeah.
Illustrious swimming career. Unfortunately, during the time of isolation, so not too many Springbok teams selected, but I don't see any regrets.
Regrets are there. Whether I would have made the Springbok team, I don't know. If the teams were a little bigger and they took two backstrokers, if I could go along with Lee, maybe I'd get to go. But I would have loved to have gone to the Olympics. I think that's every swimmer, who swims at that sort of level must want to go to the Olympics. And even I'd like to even go now and just go and watch. I've never been to Olympic Games, and that's on the bucket list. I'd really like to go to Olympics.
World Championships, but without swimmers. We'll get to that later. So let's touch on your coaching career. So I think it was 75.
Yeah,
you went to with Bob Campbell. He left.
Yes, I was swimming with Bob. Then I swam 75. I swam till 75 Currie Cup in Johannesburg, and I swam the 100 back, and that was it. And I said, Bob was leaving. He was going to go and coach at the university. So his whole squad was just left, to looking for a coach. So he asked me to take over his squad, which I did, and then stopped swimming. In those days, if you got 1 cent from swimming, you were out. I was never allowed to swim mid-mar, never allowed to play water polo, because I made money from coaching kids. And I wasn't even. I suppose it was my career at that stage. When I was a student, I was still at varsity, then still at Pretoria University. But then I became a teacher. Most of the years that I coached, I was a school teacher. So it wasn't really my main income. Yeah. But I was never allowed to do anything. There was a guy that, I won't even mention his name, but he got me out of the pool 3 times, wanting to play water polo because I was a professional.
Not even social water polo?
I didn't like doing things socially in those days. I wanted to swim properly and play water polo properly, and I was never allowed to because of professionalism then. I started coaching then in 75 at Menlo Park, and Bob went across to the varsity, and I had his squad, a young group of swimmers, but fantastic. Coach there for 5 years.
Was Gerrit van der Walt in that squad?
Yeah, Gerrit was. He was a.
How was he in the cold water?
He was probably one of the best swimmers that I coached there. You talk about the cold water. I can remember he was probably around about 11 or 12 years old. And we didn't have heated pools or winter facilities. We trained in a 50-meter outdoor pool, which was really nice. But we started swimming on the 1st September, and we started the 1st of October doing morning sessions. Ooh. And I remember one morning session, it was so cold, everybody had got out. And Gerard, as I say, he was 10 or 11 years old. And I said to him, Gerard, climb out. No, he wants to train. And he swam. Really? And I remember him crying. And every time he breathed, he could go, and then he'd put his head down, And you'd get to the side and say, Gerard, get out. No, you train. And that's paid off. He was also a very, very talented swimmer, but a very hard worker. From a youngster, he swam very, very hard, trained very hard, and all paid off in the end.
Okay, so you took over Bob's squad. So what happened after that? How did you end up at Tukkies?
Long time before then. I coached at Menlo Park for 5 years. I actually went and taught there as well for the last 2 years that I coached. I was a teacher at the school. It was my first teaching post. And then in 1980, after nationals, went down to the coast. I always wanted to live at the coast. I love the sea, and I got an opportunity.
Water, man. I
Absolutely, I love the water. I was since I was born until now. If I don't swim every day, I get grumpy. I think it's better I sleep. Yeah. So I love the ocean. And 1980 moved down to Westville, taught at Westville Boys High, and the idea wasn't to get back into coaching, but within 3 months I ended up at Wansbeck Club and started coaching there. And coached there for 80 till end of 83. I coached at Wansbeck. Had some really good swimmers, people like Patricia and Susan Butcher, probably the two best swimmers that I had. Youngsters like Keith Whitfield and Paul Niemont, who did really well when they became seniors as well. Trish and Sue both left to go and swim in the States. And one day I'm sitting in the staff room and I got a phone call from the vice rector at the university, saying would I come and see them. They wanted me to come and work at the university as a part-time lecturer, part-time sports officer. So I went up and I was just blown away by all the facilities that they had there, and so I went back to Pretoria and spent 3.5 years at the university. Very happy years. Love coaching there, lecturing, but very much involved with the sports bureau,
I think
and coaching the swimming.
When it came to high performance, I think Tukkies was
and still, they're still doing a great job there. My assistant coach in was Linda de Jager from Bloemfontein. You might know Linda. She swam for Free State, and then she came to Pretoria, and she was my assistant coach at Tuks, and she's now doing so well there. She's done great work at Tuks with her swimmers.
Yes.
And and had some really good swimmers. Dorothea Neumeister, Forfo van der Merwe, Jaco Kruger, Francois Viljoen, the two Grant girls. They were really good, and they inspired the little ones, because what we did then in about 1984, I actually started the Tuks Junior Club. Up until then, Tuks was just a senior club, just students, no outsiders, just the students. And my very good friend John Short, who was the athletics coach, and Krista Ulifier, who was the gymnastics coach, the three of us got together and we started a junior section of each of our sports. And that's where Tuks Junior Club started.
Okay.
And had some really nice little swimmers coming through there that were inspired by those students. And as you know, we did really well at SAUs in those days, 84, 85, 86. We won SAU. And
don't remind me of that. I was swimming in the Maltese team there.
Yeah, and at the same time, I looked after all the aquatics. Water polo was also very, very powerful in those days. I think Tuks won the water polo for 11 years in a row on the trot without losing.
After that, Marty's came through and they had Andy Shedlock and these.
Oh yes,
who played quite well. That was towards 87, 88. My final
yes.
was at Marty's.
Okay,
they
yeah.
did quite well.
I was the sports officer in charge of the polo. I never coached them, but they were really strong. Yeah.
The memories and the friends we made in those days are still close friends.
Yes, quite strangely, I still chat to a few of the American swimmers that I was friends with on Facebook now, and that's kind of recently that it's happened. I didn't see them for many, many years, and now with Facebook coming back and being retired and having time to do things, I've picked up a few of those old friendships. But I mean, we sit here in Stellenbosch at Forfo van der Merwe's house. And it's one of my ex-swimmers.
That's a question I want to come to. I mean, you sacrificed a lot. You were always there before the swimmers started and left after they finished, sometimes quite a long time. You mentioned a few coaches that impacted your life, the Tom Frankels, the Santa van Jaarsveld, Clara Orick.
Clara
all had rubbed off on your coaching.
Yes. Yeah, when I started coaching, I came out of the swim. I was 22 years old. I didn't know too much about the physiology or and what coaching was all about. And I took programs that Bob was giving us and started using them. But I think again, like I said with my mom, I just loved it. I loved coaching, and I love coaching now. I coach now. I coach lifesavers now, and I coach the nippers, and then we start at 5 o'clock in the morning now. But
then in Natal, the sun had been up since 4 o'clock.
Yeah, that's true. But it's from those guys. The Janet Prices and Zwi Katabi. You mentioned Tom Frankel. Frank Gray. There were a lot of really good coaches around when I was a lightie, and I learned a lot from those guys.
I remember back in the days, the swimmers and the coaches didn't travel much, but when they did, they came back with incredible techniques and information and energized. I remember Libby Burrell went to Fort Lauderdale and came back a changed person. Because she then, I think, there was a coach, Doc Councilman. And they all learned from, but there was no YouTube or videos. Someone got hold of a Betamax or a VHS tape about coaching. It was shared around, and coaches were sharing their stories. And
Doc Councilman, of course, was the guru in those days. When I was in the States, he was at Indiana University. He was head coach at Indiana. He coached Mark Spitz, and if you can. All those, he had so many world champions there that did really well in '72 at the Olympics. I met him at our dual meet. We swam against Indiana, but he was probably the top coach in the world in those days. Very much so. Yeah.
Your highlights as a coach, because you coach some serious swimmers. Any memories that still stand out?
Gee, if I work backwards, probably at the university, one standout time was. We went to the Springbok Trials in Bloemfontein, and I think the first event was the men's 400, and Jaco Kruger won that. Okay. The next event was the women's 200 breast, and Dorothea Neumeister won that. Then it was the breaststroke, and 4-4. I don't think he won it, but he was right up. I think he got a second place in the breaststroke. Mandy Grant did really well. I think Kevin Richards 100 backstroke, he went and won the 100 so in the first 5 or 6 events, I think the tuck swimmers came through and won 4 of them. That was a real highlight. I remember that as a standout occurrence. Winning SAUs, really good. We used to go to Bloemfontein. You remember that? You remember the galas in Bloemfontein in the winter? I used to take my squad through there, my Pretoria squad, the first squad, and we won that gala once or twice. And that's where I know Santa from. I got to know her really well. I coached her daughter, and I know her son very well from water polo. Albert and Karen. Also a great coach. I learned a whole lot from.
Santa's still swimming.
She's amazing.
You can't keep a good man down. Santa's still swimming.
Yeah.
There's a swimmer's name that popped up as well in Natal, a guy called Rory Callahan. Tell me a bit more about him.
Rory was my first Natal swimmer that I coached.
Yes.
He was at Wansbeck Swimming Club. His dad was instrumental in me starting to coach there. He was the chairman of the club, and he actually contacted me to come and coach. And so Rory was the first swimmer that I coached that made the Natal side.
Unbelievable. And he was a pretty awesome swim lifesaver.
He did lifesaving. Most of my swimmers, when I was coaching there, most of them did lifesaving. They were all nippers or juniors. And
a bit of an advantage with that bloody good swell and the warm water all year round. We like to get them down to Clifton and try and compete against them.
That's not fair. This water that you guys have here is not competitive. You can't swim in that.
Some sharks as well. It's not fair, but anyway.
I think the orcas have sorted your sharks out. It seems like, unfortunately.
So there's a story that you mentioned that you were actually sent by South African Swimming Union to, I think it was Berlin or somewhere.
Yes, I went to Berlin to the World Champs. No swimmers. No swimmers. Yeah, obviously we had no swimmers. Went across to the World Champs. They sent me across to go and learn. I was still a young coach, and they sent me across. We had a few. Tom Frankel was there. Zwi Katabi was there. Okay. Rudy Spoor was there with the German team, I think, was there. And during those 6-7 days of the World Champs, I learned so much from those guys, because every hour is fantastic. Every evening after the finals, we'd get together and go and drink coffee and chat about what had happened. And I just sit and listen. It was fantastic listening. Zwi, I remember Zwi. at that champs, I think it was Tracy Corkins was the first person to dive through the hole.
Yes.
And the pistol went, and she kind of lifted off, and everybody else dived flat, and the whole crowd just went, whoa! And she disappeared under the water and popped up a body length ahead of everybody.
Incredible.
And I was sitting next to Zvi there, and I mean, he was uncontrollable. He was so excited, you know. And I remember when we watched her underwater when she was warming up, and I remember him saying, "What do you see?" And I said, "What? I see her swimming." He said, "But what do you see? What is she doing?" Yes. And she says, "She is swimming butterfly," and she was under the water. That her whole body position had changed, getting her head down, getting her hips up, powerful kick, and that was Zvi. He got so excited about that, and he was a great coach, and
also ahead of his time.
Yeah, another interesting thing that happened at those World Champs. My coach from Southern Illinois University, Ray Essick, was the head coach of the American side, and I knew he was going to be there. So I'd taken a gift that was a Springbok satchel, and I took it across with some books on South Africa, and I was so happy to see him on the side of the pool. And I went to him and I said, "Ray, I've got you a gift." And he looked down on the ground like he said, "Owen, please walk away from me now, and don't." He didn't even look me in the eyes. He said, "Please walk away from me now. If they see me talking to you and they know that you're from South Africa, they'll send me back to the States." And I wasn't even allowed to talk to him on the pool deck. I had to meet him away from the pool and chatted with him there. But it was that bad, that we couldn't even, they couldn't even be seen to talking to South Africans in those days. Yeah.
When I spoke to Lee, he had some very interesting stories about those years, not being able to swim internationally, and driving back from the airport after they'd been boycotted out of the Olympic Games.
Yes, but I'll try and get that story
from him. Yeah.
So Owen, when you stopped coaching swimming, you went straight into coaching surf lifesaving, so we can't keep you out of the water.
Yeah, there were a few years from when I stopped coaching seriously. I went seriously into teaching. I taught for 40 years. I retired. I was a phys ed teacher, taught a bit of English and geography. But the last 24 years I was a principal of a school. Last 21 years at Crawford schools, 5 different Crawfords. Absolutely. There's a name. There's a name of a kid on each one of these. But so I was really. But while I was teaching, I was very involved with the school sides, especially when I was in Pretoria, in Northern Transvaal primary schools and high school teams, coaching the schools that I was with. But then when I retired, we went down. I live in Scotland now. We've retired down there, and I've got involved with Scotland Lifesaving Club.
Fantastic.
And I absolutely love it. I reckon I just wish I'd got involved with it earlier, because I think surf lifesaving is the best sport that a kid can do. It's competitive. You learn skills in the water, out of the water. You get fit. You get strong. You learn things that can save a guy's life one day.
And what I like about surf lifesaving, I actually spoke to Oscar Chalupsky last week, so I actually want to do what I'm doing now. I want to do with surf lifesaving as well.
Yeah.
But what I like about surf lifesaving, there's an element of nature involved, which you can package as luck. So even a swimmer that's not at his peak fitness can catch away from behind and still. So I always felt when I was doing surf lifesaving, in swimming, if you're not 100% fit, I had no chance.
Yeah.
But in surf lifesaving, I always thought if I had 80% fitness, if I can get to the cans within the next first 20 or 30 guys, there's a chance
you're relying on a wave. Come through from the back.
Because I had Graham Hill and all these Rory Callahan.
You Graham. I taught Graham. I taught Graham and Oscar. They were both at Westville Boys High. Oscar was in matric in 80, and Graham a little after him, about 83 or so. But I coached both of those guys. They were great water polo players. Graham was great water polo as well.
They could do anything.
And Oscar now. I mean, you talk about Lee being a tough guy. I don't think they come any tougher than Oscar. That's
for sure.
I saw Oscar and Lee compete against each other many times, and it was always a fight to the finish line.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to get one of your former swimmers out here. 4-4. Not every day that you can whistle at a CEO of a company and he actually reacts.
And beckon, come here. and he responds.
That's probably the first and the last time.
Oh, and before we finish off this interview, as we mentioned earlier, some coaches and swimmers stay connected for the rest of their lives. And here we have one of your maybe naughtier swimmers, and you guys are still connected.
I live a long way away. I've never lived down here. My daughter lives here in Somerset West, so we're visiting. And chatted to for a little while ago on the phone. I said, when we come down again, we're gonna get in touch. So we're going out for a meal tonight. Yeah.
Well, for now it's your turn to get back at Owen for all those long, hard sessions he made you swim. You know, tell me, why would you even want to have dinner with us?
Yeah, I think the nice thing about Owen was, I think the swimmers had a lot of respect for him, and especially because of his knowledge and the way that he coached us. And I think it's maybe because he was not that much older than us, that he could connect with us as well. Okay. And I always say, I could always see that Owen really cared for his swimmers and his athletes. When I started doing biathlon, he was a swimming coach, and he was doing my running with me. He went to the field and on the track, and he took my times there. And when I went to the Springbok trials for biathlon, he was the one in my Volkswagen Beetle that went all the way to Bloemfontein, and we competed there, and we drove back in the evening, etc. So
but Thijs, that's another interesting story. He's being a little bit modest here. We went down. He had never done biathlon before, but we trained really hard. And he trained really hard. We did Monday, Wednesday, Friday hard in the pool and ran long distances. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday hard on the track and just swam nice, easy. And we went to Bloemfontein at the South African the Springbok trials for biathlon, and he won them. And they didn't pick him for the Springbok side. They said no, it's the first time he's competed, and he's not allowed to get his colours. But because he had done so well, they invited him to go with as a guest with the team to Switzerland.
Big mistake.
And when he went there, he not only won the meet, but he broke the South African record. And when he got off the plane at OR Tambo, which was then, they had a Springbok blazer for him, and so that's where he got his Springbok biathlon colours. So that was one of the big memories that I have here. That you talk about memories earlier, I think that's one of the fondest memories I have, was that coaching him for biathlon and that meet that he did so well in.
As his coach, won't you command him to get back into the water? We need more biathletes. Start.
He's not in a shabby state. I mean, he was telling me that 3 years ago he still did 100 100s. I mean, he's in good shape.
Was that in a year or?
No, that's in one session.
Owen, I want to honour you for what you brought to the sport as an athlete, as a coach, and what you're doing now just to inspire. You will never stop coaching. Coaching is written all over you. And thanks for the time and effort you put in, because I know the rewards are not always easy to measure, but the rewards are people like Fofo who want to spend time with you, because sometimes when people get older, they don't want to spend time with you. To me, the reward is that people like Fofo, they think back fondly of the times they swam with you, and they want to spend time with you. I think that's the biggest accolade a coach can have.
I think that's the greatest reward that a coach can get, is to spend time with these old guys and see what's happened to them, and stay in contact with them, and stay in contact with the little ones. With the coaching of the lifesaving, I'm still coaching 8, 9, 10-year-olds, which is fantastic, and they're still doing so well, and I love it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thanks.